PS4 video. So it looks like we finally have the Blu-ray implementation released. I say finally, it's actually been very quick. It's been only a week to go from having just the userland exploit, which we couldn't really do very much with, to the point where it's been chained with the lapse kernel exploit, allowing us to now use a Blu-ray disc to fully jailbreak the PS4 up to firmware 12.02. So that's all been included here in this latest release from Gejine, which is probably still mispronounced. I do apologize, but hopefully that's better than calling the developer Gazine. But yeah, anyway, so we have the exploit now available. So if we take a look at the repo, there's a few notes added in here. We can see we've got support for the lapse exploit on firmwares 9.00 to 12.02. So all firmwares from 9.00 up to 12.02 should be supported with this, so you can fully jailbreak those firmwares. However, of course, older firmwares are not supported yet below 9.00, although that will likely come in time. And then, of course, firmwares higher than 12.02, like 12.50, are not going to be loadable because we don't have a jailbreak, we don't have a kernel exploit for firmwares above 12.02 yet, which is why even though this Blu-ray exploit works up to 12.50, we can't jailbreak up to 12.50 without a new kernel exploit. So it's only up to 12.02. So it says the lapse jar payload will automatically load the binary payload from the USB 0 payload.bin, and it will copy it to data payload.bin on the hard drive. If binary payload is not present at either of these paths, it will load the bin loader server listening on port 9020 and use payload sender.py to send the binary file. So there's two options. You can either use the remote loader, which I think a lot less people are going to use, which is this version here. You can burn that to a disk, and then when you load it, it will just run a listener, and then you can send the lapse kernel exploit as a jar file over the network for it to then load the exploit, so that if there's other jar payloads in future, you can just send whichever one you want to use at the time. However, I think for most people who want to just use it to jailbreak their console, you're going to be using the lapse.iso, which includes the kernel exploit in the ISO file, so as soon as you load the disk, it will automatically just jailbreak the console. That is the general idea. That would probably be the better one to use for the majority of people. So in order to set this up, all you need to do is download the ISO file and burn it to a disk using your Blu-ray writer. So I normally use third-party software like ImageBurn, which tends to be more reliable. So just go ahead and open up the software of your choice. So I'll open up ImageBurn and select the option to write the image file to the disk, drag and drop the ISO file inside the program. And then of course you can also click the browse button to browse for it manually. And then once you have a blank Blu-ray disc inserted or a rewritable Blu-ray disc inserted, I would recommend the BD-RE Blu-ray discs because those are the rewritable versions, which means future updates can be rewritten to the same disc instead of wasting each disc. I know some discs can be formatted like USB drives with normal BD-R discs, but that does not work with all Blu-ray writers. It's not always compatible. BD-RE discs are recommended, but it will work on a BD-R disc as well. So all you need to do is simply click the button to write to the disk once you have the disk inserted, and then give it a few seconds to write it. It should only take probably less than a minute because it's so small to write it to the Blu-ray disc. And then once that's done, you can take that Blu-ray disc out and put it into your PS4. Now, of course, we do also need to get the payload on the USB drive so it can load it, especially if you're doing this for the first time. So all you need to do is grab yourself a USB drive. Now, it doesn't specify if the USB has to be exFAT or FAT32. So my USB drive, I think, is in exFAT format at the moment. So we'll see if that works. Hopefully it will. And then all you need to do here is go ahead and take your payloads for Gold 10. Preferably, you want Gold 10 version 2.4b18.5 because it supports firmwares from 9.00 right the way up to 12.02. And you want to drag and drop the payload.bin onto the root of the USB drive, and then just rename it from gold10.bin to payload.bin. Just like if you were using the Lua exploit, setting that up for the first time, it's the same idea. So at that point, all you have to do is simply eject the USB drive, plug that into your PS4 as well, along with the Blu-ray disc. Okay, so this is my 12.02 system here, and as you can see, it's not running the jailbreak right now. We don't have Gold 10 running, and of course, if I try and run any of these homebrew applications that I've installed when I jailbroke using other methods, you can see that it says we cannot use this content, so the exploit is not running, no jailbreak at the moment, but we have the Blu-ray disc inserted. So if I go ahead and run the Blu-ray disc, now what I've noticed with this is it does take a while to actually get the Blu-ray loaded, and that is usually because it has to enable HDCP whenever you load a Blu-ray disc, and then whenever you exit the Blu-ray disc, it has to disable HDCP. So that can kind of take a few seconds, so we kind of lose signal and regain signal here, which takes a little while. But once that's done, the actual loading of the exploit, once the disk is loaded, is incredibly fast. We're talking about 1 to 2 seconds and bam, we're up and running with the jailbreak. It's already copied the payload from the USB drive to the hard drive, so that's done. It looks like having it in exFAT format is fine. So as you can see, that is all working. So yeah, pretty awesome stuff. It's loaded. Once the log stops and it says there that the payload's been successfully loaded, you can then exit out of the Blu-ray player. Now, maybe this will happen automatically in a future revision, like on the PS5, where there is like a disk closing payload that runs afterwards, which will close the disk player automatically. We might see something like that happen in the future, but for now, this is just the initial release, and you'll just have to close the application manually once you have the exploits loaded. And that's it. So once it closes successfully and disables HDCP, we should be up and running with the exploit. So as you can see, if I head over to the Gold Hen settings, we have Gold Hen running. All of the options are there. So we have successfully fully jailbroken this PS4 on firmware 12.02 here, just using a Blu-ray disc. So the next thing is that if I try and run one of the homebrew applications that wasn't running before, you can see that that's also running. So Gold Hen is fully operational. We're able to run our fake packages. We have the console fully jailbroken. But in addition to this, another thing that I should also mention is when you first try to load the Blu-ray disc, you might run into a couple of messages. There is a message that pops up when you first launch a Blu-ray disc for the first time, asking you for enabling like internet features. Just allow that. It doesn't cause any problems. Just allow that and it will let the Blu-ray disc load. If you get an error message saying something about HDCP being disabled, you'll need to go into your settings and go to your system settings and enable HDCP because it's required for loading Blu-ray discs as a copy protection measure. So you need to make sure that you have HDCP enabled in order to be able to load those Blu-ray discs. Now, in terms of success rate, I loaded it about 5 times without any issues. On the 6th attempt, I did get 1 fail, and it basically just tells you in the log that it failed and that you need to restart your PS4, and it will most likely crash the PS4 when you try to restart it anyway. If that does happen, you just have to reboot it and try again. So not too bad, not too much of an issue there. Pretty much on par with a lot of the other exploits, it seems. So honestly, this is an incredible exploit, much more accessible for people compared to the Lua exploit we had to use before, which involved buying some games that were only available in the Japanese market, having to get them imported, dealing with import fees and scalpers and all of that kind of stuff, as well as having to get the save files prepared that load the exploit, which is also an extra hassle on top. This doesn't have those issues. As long as you have a Blu-ray burner and Blu-ray discs, you can burn a copy of the exploit in just a few seconds and get up and running with the jailbreak. So much, much easier compared to previous methods. So obviously, if you appreciate the developers' work here, because it is honestly incredible that they've been able to get this all done within the space of a week. Sometimes it takes many weeks for these things to be ported, but in this case, it was just about a week and we have a full implementation ready with the Blu-ray disc. So I'll go ahead and leave a donation link to the developer down in the video description if you want to show your appreciation. But yeah, that's probably going to do it here for this video. I will be doing a full tutorial, of course, a beginner's guide for people who are new to jailbreaking the PS4 to use this exploit to jailbreak their console from scratch with all of the necessary information for beginners. So that will be coming very soon. But for now, that'll do it for this one. So hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. As always, I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.